Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing the latest Netflix film to pop up on the streaming service, The Devil All the Time. Now, for me, this movie, I kind of had heard little rumblings about this film for a few months now, mainly because of the cast involved in the film. Mainly the main character, Tom Holland, or the main actor, Tom Holland, who everyone knows as Spider-Man. Personally, outside of Spider-Man, I really haven't seen Tom Holland in a lot of things outside of that, at least since Spider-Man had came out. I mean, obviously, he's been in other films since then, but I've never really seen him do a dramatic film. Now, I know he's done dramatic films, I think, like The Lost City of Z, but I personally haven't got to see that, or Master and Commander. But I never got to see Tom Holland outside of his quirky Peter Parker self, for the most part. So I was really interested and seeing what he was going to bring to this role, because the trailer of this film shows a very dark story between the characters in this film, between Tom Holland's character Arvin, Robert Pattinson's pastor character, Bill Skarsgård's character Willard. This definitely looks like one of those real dark dramas that you didn't quite know what you're going to get. So the trailer really intrigued me with this star cast as well as the story itself. So let's go ahead and hop into the review and see exactly what I thought of The Devil All the Time. Now, The Devil All the Time is based off of a book of the same name written by Donald Ray Pollock, who also narrates the movie throughout the film. And basically, the main plot is that it follows sinister characters converge around a young man devoted to protecting those he loves in a post-war backwoods town teeming with corruption and brutality. So the film, because it is based off a book, it is kind of told like a book in chapters. So it doesn't follow linearly from beginning to end. It does kind of jump around here and there, and there is about 7, I would say, main characters in this film. Obviously, the main one being Tom Holland's Arvin, who does not. Tom Holland himself doesn't show up until about 45 minutes into the film, but the Arvin character, a younger version of him, shows up earlier than that. But the story itself starts off with Willard, played by Bill Skarsgård. Maybe people know him as Pennywise from It. But it takes place after the events of World War II, where Willard saw something very horrific that you'll see in the opening scene of the film, and it's kind of stuck with him. It's kind of made him turned off to praying and being religious. But on his way back home from the war, he runs into his future wife, Charlotte, played by Haley Bennett, and from there they get married. They have Arvin, and through that time, meeting her and everything like that, he developed the ability and the love to pray again. He also, he's got his mother, his uncle, and then their friend, Helen Hatton, played by Mia Wasikowska. And all of them are all super religious people, and Willard's got a really dark past because of the events of the war. Nonetheless, events happen throughout the film, and we are also introduced to Carl and Sandy, played by Riley Cano, or Cano. I don't know if I say her last name right. Maybe people know her from The Lodge that came out earlier this year and last year. And Jason Clarke, who I think is a fantastic actor. And there's a little bit something different about them compared to a lot of normal people, and you'll find that out in the film. So you follow those characters a little bit, and then Sandy's brother, Lee Bodecker, who is the deputy at the time of that film, played by Winter Soldier's own Sebastian Stan. But then we do jump ahead to, I believe it's Arvin's 15th or 17th birthday, and that's when Tom Holland comes into play. And we start following the life of him and his adoptive sister, Lenora, played by Elise Scalin. Maybe people know her from last year's Little Women. And then they also are introduced to a brand new preacher, Preston Teagarden, played by Robert Pattinson. And there's just a whole lot of stuff that happens. I don't want to go too deep or really give away any of the plot, because like I said, it is a book. There's a lot of layers to the story between all these main characters. But yeah, the first things first with this film is the acting is top-notch. The performances for everyone in this film are incredibly well done. Tom Holland, personally, I think this is one of the best performances I've ever seen him do. It's one of my favorite performances of the year. I said, we're used to Tom Holland being kind of quirky, funny, dorky, charming, in his own sense as Peter Parker. We never got to see this side of him. And as Arvin, you're watching Tom Holland basically have to exude all this anger, but keep it bottled up in a bottle inside him. You're just watching him, and he is just an angry young man because of the events that happen in the film when he's a younger child, towards his father, and just how life has given him up to that point. And he is a powder keg of emotions, and you just see Tom Holland's performance bleeding through the Arvin character, trying to keep this volcanic eruption of anger inside of him until it eventually does blow. And when Tom Holland has to bust through with that kind of violence, he does it fantastic, because Arvin is a good kid, but he was brought up by his father Willard in a certain way. He's very protective of his family. I know I am in that same respect. And he has to be very restrained around everyone around him. But when he gets unleashed because of the events that happen in the film, Tom Holland knocks it out of the park. It's one of my favorite performances of Tom Holland, and I think he did great. Robert Pattinson, who's been very popular as of late with the Batman trailer and Tenet and now this, does a great supporting job as Pastor Teagarden, playing this kind of over-the-top, zealous preacher who's just also kind of, you can tell, is not quite right and kind of sleazy. And I think Pattinson chews up the scenery as Teagarden, and I think he does a great job as well. Bill Skarsgård, I really haven't seen him in much outside of, Pennywise the Clown, but I think he puts on a strong performance in his scenes that he has earlier in the film. Haley Bennett, I think, did a great job as Charlotte. Riley I'm going to butcher her name, I'm sorry. As Sandy, I think, puts on a solid performance. Harry Melling, also someone who's popped up a lot lately from the old guard, and of course Harry Potter. He played Dudley Dursley. He plays another preacher, Roy Lafferty, and he just, it's not a super big role, but it's a very, very important role. And I think Harry Melling is one of those actors that everyone knows him as Dudley from Harry Potter, but he's slowly kind of coming out of his own and doing these certain roles in certain films and really kind of broadening himself out as an actor. And this one, I think, is a very, very strong performance by him as well. Like I said, it's not a huge performance, but it's a very vital and important performance in the film's story overall. Sebastian Stan, if there's a negative I have in this film, it's not his performance. I think Sebastian Stan does a good job. It's that obviously this is a book. There's a lot of characters, but I feel like the characters of Lee Bodecker, played by Sebastian Stan, Sandy Henderson, played by Riley, her last name I can't say right, and Jason Clarke, Carl Henderson, there's so much story to be had with those three characters, but their characters' storylines definitely fall at the wayside over the overarching story between Arvin, Pastor Teagarden, Lenora, and everything else going on. That there's one storyline element with Bodecker that it's just kind of, it felt just kind of thrown on and tacked on, which I know it's a book, so I know that's not the case. It's just it probably had a very lengthier story to it, but it probably got put on the cutting room floor to condense this film down, because this film is 2 hours and 18 minutes. But because of it not having as much of a fleshed out story point, it just doesn't feel, I don't want to say necessary, but it just feels tacked on to an already very bloated story that we're already getting. So I feel like his character definitely kind of gets kind of the short end of the stick. Same thing with Carl and Sandy. Carl and Sandy are a very intriguing couple. And I feel like their story could have been a little bit more stronger, or they could have just been in it a little bit more to really kind of send home what their characters are doing throughout the film. We get a little bit of glimpses here and there, but they're too far between that when they do eventually come full circle towards the end of the film, they feel like secondary characters instead of main characters, which I know in the book they're some of the main characters. So those three characters themselves, they do tend to not get as much of the spotlight over Tom Holland's Arvin, Pastor Teagarden, and the rest of the cast. So that's the real big negative in terms of the story. Is just that some of the story plots don't get the time that they rightfully deserve. The other thing that might shy a lot of people away, like I said with the trailer, is that it's a very, very dark and kind of depressing film. There's no happiness, there's no laughing, there's no nothing in this film. So if you're a person that doesn't like that really, really strong despair, I guess would be the right word to use, then you're probably not going to like Devil All the Time, because it is a very dark film. It's sad, it's depressing, just bad stuff just keeps happening over and over. It's very brutal when it has to be, and sometimes when it doesn't need to be, it's very, very brutal. It's very unsettling. Certain scenes are very unsettling, especially with Roy Lafferty. If you have a phobia of this certain thing, you're definitely going to have problems with Harry Melling's Roy Lafferty. So this film, while it's got a phenomenal cast and it's acted incredibly well done, will probably turn some people away because the story is just so down the entire time. But that's what dramas are a lot of the time. Not all dramas have to be happy or have some jokes or anything like that. This is just a straightforward film that very religious in a sense, but also the main point is that everyone is a sinner and everyone has their demons, and it's whether or not you can fight through them to the end of the tunnel and see that light. And that's basically, you either do or you don't. You either get, you either power through and you find the end of the tunnel, or you succumb to your demons. And that is basically what the story is trying to do overall. And I think it does that a very, very good job. It's just that some people just might not be able to make it all the way through the film because of how down the film is overall. But going to my overall thoughts, I thought Devil All the Time was actually in a really, really well done film overall. Like I said, certain characters do kind of fall by the wayside. They should have gotten a little bit more of a stronger character arc, which I'm sure they did. They just probably got cut out of the film. But the performances of Holland, Pattinson, Skarsgård, basically the whole cast for the most part, but Holland in particular puts on a fantastic performance. One of my favorite performances he's ever done. One of the better performances of the year personally as well. In terms of recommendation, if you can handle the dark mood and just the kind of sad, depressing brutality what this film's going to bring, then I strongly, strongly recommend you guys check this out. If you are not one of the fans of those kinds of films, or if you're not going to be able to handle a film like that, then you're not going to be able to enjoy The Devil All the Time, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to you personally, because like it's kind of like, I'm not saying it's like Schindler's List, because Schindler's List is just like depressing film that just is dark. It makes you angry and stuff like that. I personally have never seen it because I don't want to see it, because I know what the film is about, and it's a personal choice by me. This film, it doesn't ever reach that kind of level. But if you're a person that can't handle films like that, then The Devil All the Time is definitely not going to be a film for you. If you want to see a very fantastic acting performances from these characters, especially Tom Holland, and you don't care about how dark or depressing it is, then definitely check out The Devil All the Time. You will not be sorry. It is on Netflix, available right now, so feel free to check it out. Going to my overall score, I'm going to give The Devil All the Time an 8.1 out of 10. Like I said, some of the characters, just because they fell by the wayside in terms of a strong story arc, that hurt me a little bit, and just because it's just so damn depressing. It's not. I really appreciated that I watched the film. I liked the film overall. It's just not a film that I probably would ever go back to and rewatch again. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up in Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next Wednesday, Enola Holmes on Netflix will be dropped, so I'll probably be doing a review on that. Outside of that, I don't really know what the next one's going to be, so just be on the lookout for any new things that pop up on the channel. And until next time, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.